Hello, my name is Jerry Garcia, and for our movie interpretation on ethics, I chose Sophie's Choice. Um, the movie Sophie's Choice had the idea of Kantianism in it, and it is displayed in Sophie's action several times through the act utilitarianism and through goodwill. And she chose to do the right thing several times and even sacrificed her own happiness and her own well-being to save others. In the end, though, some of her actions or non-actions made her full of regrets and unhappy with the outcomes. And it made her feel bad about being alive at times. The interpretation in the movie, it's in there several times because Sophie was giving the choice to act for the moral good on other people's behalf. One time she was able to do this was when she was at Auschwitz, and a Jewish man asked her to steal a radio. And she decided to help him. In the end, she did decide to help him, but she did this after the German man in charge of her, the man that she worked for, agreed to take her son out of a prison camp that a lot of people were getting sick and dying, and she said, please save him, I don't care about me, whatever happens to me I don't care, just make sure that he's okay. And he's a good boy and he can pass for German, so he decides to take her son out of the camp, and that she was going to have a visit with him the next day. And then after the visit, then her son would be sent off to that reform school to turn him into a good German citizen or whatever, to turn him into a German. But she knew that this was going to happen the next day, and right after they made that agreement and she left the office of her boss, she actually had the chance to steal the radio. And she decided, I'm going to do it now. And she did that at the risk of her life, her son's life, their happiness. So, I mean, she got caught, but she did choose the good. She acted for the many Jews' lives that she could save just by stealing that radio, than just worrying about her and her son. So that's one act that she did that was of goodwill and act utilitarianism. I'm not good at saying that word. Another time she helped to save one person's life was by making the decision for her daughter to be killed. When her and her children got off the train, when they were on their way to the concentration camps, a soldier there made her decide between her son and her daughter's life. And when she couldn't make the decision, she's crying, I can't do it, I can't do it. He said, then we're going to take both of them. So then, a split-second decision, she decides, take my daughter, to save her own son's life. And by her doing that, that had been a really, really hard decision, even if it wasn't her children, if it was her family, or just between two strange children to make that decision. And she had to live with that decision that she made of saving her son and having her daughter killed. She had to live with that decision for the rest of her life. So it made her pretty unhappy. But then in the movie there are several times that there's a different interpretation from mine about her not acting on the goodwill of others and actually being more selfish and more to her own needs and her own happiness. One time in the movie she could have stopped somebody's actions was her own father. And I know it's hard to stand up to your own parents or someone in your family when they're doing the wrong thing, but she could have done that by telling him that what he was doing was wrong, walking away from him, or even that night of the speech, she could have ripped up the speech and made him look like a idiot up there in front of everybody with nothing to say, So, I mean, she already messed up the speech, so he already was mad at her. But she could have really made him look stupid, and because that speech was supposed to be about the concentration camps, about the exterminating the Jews. So you don't know how many lives she could have saved with just that one speech, or prolonged, the death of so many people just by halting that speech. So there, I think, even though it was her father that she had to go up against, she should have made the right moral decision. And another time in the movie she could have gotten involved in helping the Jews was with her boyfriend Joseph and his half-sister Wanda, and she was the leader of the revolution, of the resistance. Sorry, not the revolution. She was the leader of the resistance. And they asked for her help, and she said no because she didn't want to risk the lives of her children. Now there, I understand it's her children, but if she would have helped them, she would have been helping way more people than just her children. So, I mean, I understand her, but is for the greater good, she would have helped them out. Anyways, they ended up getting killed 2 weeks later because they got caught. But maybe if she would have helped them out, they wouldn't have gotten caught. You don't know what her role would have been, or what her actions may have caused for the future, Joseph and Wanda, they were brave, and they died trying to help as many people as they could. They risked their own lives to help the lives of others. So they actually, in that aspect, they're the ones that acted with the goodwill. Also, when I watched this movie, oh no, there is one other point that I wanted to make about that, where she could have acted the right way, but, well, she ended up acting the right way, but where right away, when she arrived and was taking a shower, a Jew asked her to please steal that radio for us. We need it. It could help, all of us Jews. And she, right away, she says, no, they could kill me. Now, right there, that's self-preservation, and anybody's going to have that that instinct. But in the end, she did end up changing her mind, and she did end up helping him. So I can't really use that against her, but just right away, her initial thoughts were, no, they'll kill me, if I get caught. One thing that did come to mind when I was watching this movie was cultural, ethical relativism. Many cultures throughout the world, and even in the same country, knew what the Germans or the Nazis were doing to the Jews. They knew that they were sending them to the concentration camps. They knew they were being killed, and nobody stood up for them. As long as it wasn't affecting them and their family, they left it alone. And an example of that is Sophie's own father. He was Polish, yet he was standing up for the Nazis. He was, and for their hatred of the Jews. He was all for it. And another example is Sophie when she was at the train station, and this is before the guard decided to take her children. She says, I'm racially pure. This is a quote from her. I'm racially pure. I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic. And she was acting like she was better than the Jews just so that she wouldn't be treated like the Jews and taken to Auschwitz. That I thought was wrong. I mean, again, the self-preservation comes into mind, but she felt like she was better than them. And at the time, the German children growing up, they felt like they were the superior race. When Sophie gets caught stealing the radio, Hesse's own daughter says to her, and this is a quote also, you're a dirty Polak. Mother says Polacks are worse thieves than gypsies and dirtier too. You stink. Well, the children, end of the quote, children at that time, the Germans, they were raised right behind the concentration camps. They seen what was happening to the Jews. They seen that they were imprisoned like wild animals. I don't know how much they knew about the exterminations, but they knew they were being treated badly. And I think this made the women children or the German children and the German women feel like they were superior to other races and people and cultures. They just felt they were better than everybody else. And you can tell by the way, the quote that she says to Sophie. You can see how she felt about other cultures. And she wasn't even Jew, so just any culture that wasn't German, pretty much. In the end, though, I feel Sophie was conflicted many times about what was right and wrong. She was scared to stand up for the rights of the Jews because of the consequences to her own children. Sophie felt bad for some of the decisions she made, and some of the decisions she made were out of excess, and some of them were out of deficiency. But some of the decisions she made were virtuous, I believe. And I believe she generally took the moral high ground when it endangered the safety of her children. After all, she is human, and it is hard not to get emotionally involved by trying to protect the people that she loved over strangers. You know, you decide, am I going to save my family or am I going to save these hundreds of people? Well, you know, your family is your family, and it's really hard to make that decision. So, I mean, if it was easy to make those life and death decisions by sacrificing those we love, then I don't think we would be human. So, this was a really hard movie for me to watch. It was very sad. Even I can say what I would do now, but at that time nobody could really, if you're put in a situation, it's really hard to say what you're going to do. You know, you can say, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this, but then it comes down to it, and you're going to do that, that, and that, because it's hard. But that's it. That's the end of my second movie interpretation, and this one was of ethics. It's Sophie's Choice, and my name is Jerry Garcia. Thank you.